Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. It won't be like the heat dome of 2021, but this weekend, BC will get a prolonged heat wave starting on Sunday, with temperatures reaching the high 30s in some areas. Officials are warning about an increased risk of heat-related illness. We're asking, are you concerned about your own health? What do you do to avoid getting overheated? A public health expert will take your calls and questions. After 12:30, our pets column is back. We'll take your questions about your cat's behavior this time. I'm Michelle Eliot. This is BC Today. Thank you for joining us on CBC Radio 1 and live streaming on CBC Gem, cbc.ca/BC, and on the CBC Vancouver YouTube page. Well, BC residents are bracing for an upcoming spike in temperatures starting on Sunday. Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry said that while it won't be a heat dome scenario, the long stretch of high temperatures will increase risks of illness due to heat. And the Minister of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness, Bowen Ma, said that local officials are preparing community supports ahead of that heat wave. But with temperatures expected to rise starting Sunday on Vancouver Island and the South Coast before moving eastward into the province, we want to know if you're concerned about the impacts from coming heat temperatures going up, and how do you plan to stay cool during the rest of this year's hot weather? You can give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, star or pound 690. And you can email bctoday@cbc.ca. And with these heat events, those who are experiencing homelessness are at a high risk of exposure. And for more on this, we have reached Upkar Singh Tatley. He's the founder and executive director of Engaged Communities Canada Society, and they operate a mobile health clinic that serves seniors and vulnerable people in Surrey, Delta, White Rock, and Abbotsford. Upkar, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
I see that you look like you are outside. You have a wide-brimmed hat on, of course, because I see, the sun is out today. Where exactly are you?
Yeah, Newton, BC, and which a city center in Surrey. So we have, a lot of work that needs to be done, and part of it is, I guess, protecting ourselves. So hence the hat.
Absolutely. And what is that work like? What do you do when the temperatures go up?
Well, we're just hitting noon now, so our misting stations are going up, our tents are going up. Prior to that, in the mornings, we spend a lot of time stabilizing the community, and a lot of that's reflected around making sure nurses that we work with at Fraser Health, they're able to access community, do wound care. We're able to hydrate people and just make sure that when those high temperatures in the afternoon and evening start to wear people down, that we've prepared them for that. So like I mentioned, the hydration, but in addition to that, they're able to get some cold relief through our tents, which we're just setting up now, as you can see here.
I see that, yes.
Food as well. So we have some food supplies and other things that people really are essential during this time. So making sure that people are prepared. And then the afternoon, we really do spend a continuation of that work. That's when a lot of people will start to trickle in who perhaps did not have access to our services or any other cooling services anywhere. And their health needs are compounded over many days. So we make sure that we're able to address those as well.
Do you ever have to send people to emergency?
Well, we're fortunate in that we are partnered with the health authority. So we do have nurses on site, but sometimes even their capacity is limited in the number of people they're seeing or the resources they have available in our mobile health unit. So what they'll do is we do have regular visits with the local law enforcement, police, paramedics. So they do check in with us time to time, see if there is anyone who needs to be taken over to the ER or anywhere else, or if they can be assisted with some advanced health care. So we're able to accommodate those requests as well.
And you mentioned wound care. What kinds of wounds do you see when it comes to the hot weather?
Well, at the top, you mentioned vulnerable populations. So that also includes many individuals who don't have access to healthcare on a regular basis. So where a scratch or a small cut for you and I might represent a bandage or a little bit of alcohol wipe, it's not the same case for other populations who simply don't have access to clean environments or access to things like bandages. And those wounds can get infected. And so what happens over time is infection leads to greater health concerns, ultimately infected wounds that nurses and doctors really should be taking a look at.
And what then should you talk about vulnerable people not having that, as you say, access to healthcare on a continuous basis? What advice do you have then in order for people to stay safe?
Yeah, well, the main thing we're encouraging people is, in addition to the food and the hydration, the access to shade and misting, we're also providing people with clothing, wide brim hats, smaller fans that they can take away. We're trying to encourage people, and it's really tough with vulnerable populations, to see if they can get longer breaks from the heat. So oftentimes what you is people will go through sustained heat, and then that won't change. They'll have to stay in that because they are unfortunately street entrenched. They don't have access to shade. They're not able to oscillate between cold environment and a hot environment. So we're trying to encourage people to stay cool as long as possible, take extensive breaks when they can, find relief, stay shaded, especially those who have health needs. But again, these are things that I'm talking about that many vulnerable populations simply don't have access to. And that's why services like ours are really important, to make sure that those with absolutely very few resources have access to many of the things that we're doing here.
Okay, I see the cooling station sign behind you there with a shaded seating area. As you mentioned, food, water, lots of water bottles, and first aid kits as well. So you're prepared. I expect you'll be quite busy over the next few days.
We're hoping to meet the needs.
Yeah. Apkar, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Take care.
You too. Apkar Singh Tatley is Executive Director of Engaged Communities Canada Society. It's now 12:13. 1:13 in the Mountain Time Zone. And for more on this, we have reached the BC Centre for Disease Control's Environmental Health Services Scientific Director, Sarah Henderson. Good afternoon, Sarah. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, Michelle. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's going to be a hot time in BC over the next few days starting Sunday. What are the concerns for people when we are experiencing a heat wave in BC?
So, we have to accept that some people are going to think this is lovely summer weather, but what is lovely summer weather for some people can carry risks for others. And the people we want to be most concerned about are older adults, people with pre-existing conditions, especially schizophrenia, substance use disorder, COPD, kidney disease, heart failure, or any condition that really affects their health on a day-to-day basis, and very much concerned for individuals who might be living alone in those conditions in environments without air conditioning.
Okay. Have we gotten better at that? Because during the heat dome, and this is not going to be a heat dome event, but there really was the concern around people who lived alone. What is being done in BC to address that?
So I think that message came out loud and clear after the report from the BC Coroner's Service on the deaths during the heat dome. And I think we are moving very much towards a society where we have a stronger culture of checking in with those people who are receiving services through the health authorities, encouraging people to check in on their neighbors for those who might not be receiving services. But that really is one of the key messages when we're facing these hot weather events. Please check in with people who may be susceptible a couple of times a day to see how they're coping. Ask them about the indoor temperature in their environment. Ask them some questions to evaluate whether they're doing okay, and then take action if they're not.
Okay, and we'll ask you some of those things, what kinds of actions people can take in order to cool down when they are indoors. Sarah Henderson is with me from the BC Centre for Disease Control, and we're taking your questions, your calls, asking you, are you concerned about your health as temperatures rise starting Sunday? We are expecting several days of hot temperatures and asking you as well, what do you do in order to stay cool? Our numbers are 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, and star or pound 690. You can also email bctoday@cbc.ca. Claire is joining us from Fort Fraser. Hi, Claire. Thanks for the call.
Hello.
And tell us how you stay cool over in Fort Fraser.
Yeah, I live in a cabin. I'm 63, and it's just a tiny cabin.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it gets really hot,
Yeah.
all the usual curtains, and I constantly pour water on my head. And I'm not embarrassed about that. I also always
No.
have a hot bandana, a bandana soaked in water, and I cut a hole between two of my beams with a chainsaw into with the dirt under area of the building, and I put some beams down there and some bits of plywood and an old folding chair thing, so I can sort of sit down there. And I did this before when I lived in I'm an professional
Okay.
artist. When
So-
I lived in Saskatchewan, there was a heat thing a few years ago, and I had what you call those things with water under a cistern, and I had a little ladder, and I did a lawn chair there too.
Wow. So you actually are able to go sort of underneath the floor in a way.
Well, I've learned over the years. I'm on a disability from a car crash. Used to teach and so on, and you get low income and health stuff, and you just don't have money. I just have extension cord power from my main thing, and there's no way for air conditioning and things like that. And I also go to the lake. I go jump
Right.
in the lake. It's 5 minutes up the highway.
Yeah.
And I dug a hole in my yard with a little umbrella over it, and got a piece of that plastic that's for pools, and I put water, and I also go and jump in that. And yeah, I
Okay,
do
like
all
a
this stuff.
small
And
little
I
pool.
really think the big thing is people aren't reaching out to people enough. I think people got to stop being selfish. They got to think of other people, whether it's people there are a lot of people on the move, live in different places. Let's put on a friendly smile, ask people how they're doing.
Yeah.
I'm someone who's moved around, lived across the country. I was born on the island, but I've noticed in the places I've lived that, different places, like here in Vanderhoof, there's a lot of religion, and people are in their separate worlds sometimes, and you got to think of other people.
It's that community and the lessons that we have learned as we heard right from that heat dome in 2021, how much we do rely on each other and how important it is to check in on especially individuals who are on the move, who live on their
Well,
own.
that's right. Hey, I mean,
Yeah.
I always reach out to people anywhere I am.
Good for
I
you.
see people in some type of crisis. I don't know them from a hole in the wall
Yeah.
because I've been there. And I mean, I think people got to start having more courage and think of other people. And
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest difference.
That's been the
I've
message.
got great people around here. I'm
Yeah.
a chatterbox. I talk to people, but so I got various neighbors that I'm in touch with. But I don't necessarily have people checking on me. And I'd like to say the internet. For those of us, especially on lower
Yeah.
income, I mean,
I'm sorry.
there's the assumption
well, I'm s-
everybody has all
Yeah,
that.
Claire,
but we
I
don't-
do have to move on to the next caller. I'm so sorry, and I know that you are very much a conversationalist, and I'm sorry to hear that people aren't checking up on you because they should. But what I'm getting as well is just how resourceful you are in what you have built in your own home to be able to stay cool. So I really appreciate hearing from you. Thank you so much for the call from Fort Fraser. Wolfie is waiting in Powell River. Hi, Wolfie. Tell us about your concerns with the coming heat wave.
Well, I've been a little new and used bookstore,
Okay.
and it has two departments, one of which has candles in it. I guess we're going to be moving those out
Right.
and putting them in the fridge. And we're going to go tropical, I think, if it gets hot enough. I'm also a learning specialist, and so I know that the brain doesn't work very well above 30. And so when it ever gets to 30, I send my student home because there's no point in trying to train the brain at that. And there's also no point looking for books at that temperature. So I think
Right.
we'll go tropical and say, okay, midday we'll close and have a siesta, and we'll open early.
Oh,
and
that's what you
late
mean.
instead,
Okay.
So
You're changing the hours of your
Yep.
bookstore. Oh, isn't that interesting? You're opening early. I've heard that may be an option and maybe something that we see more of as we experience more of these heat waves.
yeah, I was thinking of that. That's a good
yeah.
idea. Maybe across the board.
Yeah.
So.
And for yourself, then, how do you stay? Do you have tips on how to stay hydrated as well?
Oh, I have to because I'm ancient. So, in your mid-70s, it's amazing how you feel the heat. 2 years ago when we had the heat dome,
Yeah.
I was surprised. It was great for the grape harvest, fantastic. It wasn't good for the old folks, and also the next generation is obese, and it's not good for them either. It's very hard on them.
Well,
Fortunately, my house and the building is on a concrete slab, so basically the dog and the humans are just going to be sort of splayed out on it, and they'll give the dog a one of those those kiddie pools.
yes,
I
we
don't
just
know if
heard
he'll
that
use
as
it,
well.
though.
But pardon me.
I don't know if he'll use it. He's a border collie and he lives to work.
Okay.
Got a herd, got a guard, got a bark.
Right. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've got a plan. Your bookstore, you're going to change the time. You're going to send your student home because, yeah, we have heard so much, especially this summer. I feel like I'm hearing that a lot, that the smoke, the hot weather can affect how we think and our ability. Wolfie, thank you very much for the call from Powell River. Let's go back because we've got some tips already, right, from our two callers here. Let's go back to Sarah Henderson, public health expert with the BC Centre for Disease Control. What do you make of that? So a few things there from our first caller, building, I guess, a hole in the floor. And we heard that as well, just using concrete, ways to cool down, try to get under pools, mini pools in the backyard, and just ways to deal with that indoor temperature, changing the hours as well. What do you make of those bits of advice there?
So some really great ideas here. First and foremost, water is always our friend when we're trying to cool down. So those kinds of kiddie pools, even soaking your feet in a bucket of water.
Okay.
I really encourage people to dunk their t-shirt, put it back on to keep that, torso area nice and cool. Water is going to help cool you down. Also, staying hydrated is critical. That's going to help your body do what it needs to do to cool down. Getting underground is a really good one for individuals who are lucky enough to have homes with basements. You know that the basement is cooler. During the heat dome in 2021, there were people sleeping in the garage of the condo building I live in because it was nice and cool down there. So seek those cool spaces, tile floors, concrete floors. Those are all going to be cooler than other materials. So some really good advice there. And then thinking about timing during the day. This idea of opening in the morning, closing for a while in the afternoon, and opening in the evening, that's very standard in many hot places of the world. So there's lots of different ways we can pile up together to help us cope with these higher temperatures.
Okay, using, that's interesting too, the shirt, wetting your shirt, and she had a bandana on as well in order to keep her head cool throughout the day. Thank you so much for your calls, asking you what your health concerns are as we prepare for another heat wave in BC starting Sunday, and health officials warning that the risk of heat-related illness will rise. And so what are you doing to prepare? And what do you do to stay cool when we have hot weather in BC? It is a health concern. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, star or pound 690 as well. We have an email from Karen who writes, "We are incredibly fortunate to have a heat pump, which also keeps the house cool. And I'd really like to see the BC government support electric heat pump conversion for low-income families." Karen, thank you for the email to bctoday@cbc.ca. Ruth is up next, speaking about her concerns from Cowichan Bay. Hi, Ruth. Welcome to the program.
Hi.
What are your concerns?
My concerns are that BC Hydro is turning off our power. It's a planned outage on two of the hottest days of the year. Where I live is kind of a rural area, so we don't have water either when that happens. Now, we do have a heat pump, which we won't be able to use, and a lot of the people in our area are seniors. I'm just wondering why BC Hydro would choose to do a power outage on two of the hottest days of the summer.
Okay, and this was scheduled before. There's been no update since word of this heat wave?
Actually, it was supposed to be on Monday, but they've moved it to Wednesday and Thursday, and so they had to know by the time they told us that it was going to be hot.
This coming Wednesday and Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I really think they should cancel it, probably.
And that's interesting because I thought I'd heard that that those types of outages would be moved in light of hot weather. But perhaps let's ask Sarah Henderson if she knows about what the government has done. Ruth, thank you so much. And that may be something that we want to follow up on because certainly you don't want your power off if you have a heat pump in your home and it sounds like it's going to affect your water access as well. Have you heard of what BC Hydro is doing when it comes to outages, Sarah?
Unfortunately, I have not, but it's
Mm.
certainly something I can follow up with, with our BC Heat Committee, which has representation from across the province.
Okay. Ruth, we may follow up with you after the program to find out more and ask BC Hydro as well about their scheduling when it comes to the heat wave. Thank you very much for raising that. I really appreciate it. That is an issue I think that we've heard about and talked about, of course. So we'll follow up with you and make some calls to BC Hydro, okay? And Sarah, what then, if people are staying indoors, what are the signs that they may be experiencing heat-related illness? What should they watch out for?
Yeah, so heat-related illness can really creep up on some people, and you want to be very aware of how your body is feeling. The key here is your body wants to maintain a core temperature of 36.6, and once you start overheating, that core temperature is going to start going up. The things you want to watch out for are your heart beating faster than usual, finding yourself breathing faster than usual, heavy sweating, a bit of a headache. Those are all indications that your body is starting to have to fight to maintain its core temperature. As soon as you notice any of those types of things, take action to cool down. Your body's giving you the early warnings that it's struggling, and the sooner you can start to cool down, the better things are going to go.
And at what point would you say you need to get yourself to a hospital or you need to call for an ambulance?
Yeah, so if you are moving from sort of heat exhaustion and heat stress into heat stroke, that is a very dangerous, life-threatening situation. So if you are quite dizzy, starting to feel faint, you find that you're not thinking as clearly as you normally do. These are, if you stop sweating, these are all clear signs that you are really in danger with the heat and you need to seek medical attention immediately. Even if that is the case, the things, while you're waiting for help to arrive, start to cool down, start taking those cooling actions, because every bit of cooling will help.
And we have, of course, cooling centers, recommendations from the BC CDC to get to a library, a community center where they have cooling stations. What can we do in our home? You mentioned, opening blinds in the morning, closing them in the afternoon. What more can we do? Say if we don't have a heat pump, air conditioning, are fans going to be enough?
Yeah, so managing temperatures in homes without air conditioning takes a little bit of science. You want to carefully watch the outdoor temperatures in the morning. As soon as they get hotter than the indoor temperatures, close those windows, pull those blinds, and try to trap your cool air indoors. You can use fans to help circulate the air. As soon as the outdoor temperatures are lower than the indoor temperatures, reverse. Open the blinds, open the windows, and try to bring that cooler air indoors. It's really helpful to put your fan up against an open window in the evening, so it's pulling in that outdoor air and pushing it into the indoor environment. The more fans you can have doing that, the more you're going to draw that cool air inside overnight.
And let me just take in one last call here, and then I'd love to just wrap it up with you and ask about being safe outdoors, because as you mentioned, some people see it as, this is lovely weather, I'm going to go outside and enjoy it. So I'd love to ask you about being safe outdoors, but let's get Karen here from Nanaimo, who actually does spend time outdoors for the most part, I believe. Karen, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
I live full-time in an RV campground year-round in a metal box. And the 30-amp service AC, you can use it, but you can't use much else. And it costs. So I'm older, I'm disabled, and I'm overweight, and I sweat easily. And I use big, huge spray bottles that I get from a box store. You fill them up with water and have one small. You don't need a big fan, low-volt fan, and strip down and just spritz. And I have a little bucket of water. I occasionally stick my feet in because they get warmer. It works like a hot dam, and I've been through 4 heat waves with it. It's the evaporation of the mist. You don't have to put a lot of water, just mist water on your body and the air going over it. The evaporation, you are a human air conditioner.
Wonderful. So it's the fan that helps, right?
You have to do evaporation. A fan, it doesn't have to be a very strong fan at all, but you should feel it drift over your body, and it evaporates the fine mist of water. Don't do heavy water. And you just lay there and do whatever you're doing, and you'll find that you're easily 10 to 15 degrees cooler than it is outside.
Really great. I'm so glad that it's worked for you. Karen, thank you so much for the call.
Works for lots of people.
Yeah. I bet. I have seen that as well on various lists of what to do. Thanks so much for the call in Nanaimo. And let's wrap up with Sarah Henderson from the BCCDC. What then if people choose to go outdoors or have to be outdoors, as we know, what can they do to stay cool?
So, we're all familiar with seeking shade. That's probably the first one, is trying to reduce the amount of time that you spend in the direct sunlight, ensuring that you're not getting a sunburn, which is not going to help at all. So long sleeves, big hats, sunscreen on those places that you can't cover up. And then, outdoors can be quite a cool environment depending on where you are.
Right.
And this touches back to what your last caller was saying. If you're near to water and there's a breeze, that breeze is going to pick up some of the water from the ambient environment and make that surrounding air cooler. So, if you can sit near a stream in a shady area, I love to walk through a ravine that we have in Mission because it's always 8 degrees cooler there than anywhere else. So seek those lovely places outside where you can stay cool and comfortable.
That's so true. I go under a tree and I feel that difference from when I go out for outside of the shade. Sarah, always good to speak with you. This is such useful information as we go into the weekend. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, and stay safe, everyone.
Sarah Henderson is the scientific director with the BC Centre for Disease Control. And Pilinka writes us, my helpful hints for staying cool are douse your head regularly, wear a wet, long sleeve shirt, drink lots of water. Remember to use hydration salts. In bed, wet a sheet and put it over you with a fan blowing on you. And a fan is also helpful for mosquitoes. And one last one, jump in the lake. There you go. Thank you very much. Yeah, enjoy the lake if you're near one. Thanks for that email. This is BC Today here on CBC. We're on radio, 88.1 FM in Metro Vancouver, live streaming as well on cbc.ca/BC and on the CBC Gem app, YouTube as well. And coming up in our next half hour, our pets column is back. And we'll be joined by cat behavior specialist Julie Poslins, who'll take your questions on your cat's behavior. That's coming up after the CBC News Update with Michelle Morton.
Good afternoon. Here are the headlines from the CBC Vancouver newsroom. As nearly 400 active wildfires burn in BC, federal officials say wildfire activity across the province and to the Northwest Territories and to Western Ontario could continue into September. The federal government has provided the latest snapshot of the wildfire crisis facing the country. They describe this year as unprecedented, with just under 5,600 fires recorded across Canada since the season began in April, burning 134,000 square kilometers of trees, bush, and grassland. A 24-year-old man is dead after a car crash on North Vancouver Island this morning. The RCMP say the crash happened just after 4:30 south of Port Hardy, a few kilometers down Holberg Road from Highway 19. Police say a black Mitsubishi Outlander had crashed and the 21-year-old male driver had to be extracted by emergency responders and transported to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The passenger died at the scene. Police say alcohol is suspected to be a factor in the crash. And Prince George RCMP say they've received an unusually high number of bear complaints this month. Police are reminding residents to contact them only if a bear is posing an immediate threat to public safety. Aggressive bears and bear conflicts can be reported to the BC Conservation Officer Service. Mounties say it's not unusual for bears to occasionally roam through urban areas. RCMP are reminding residents that they could face a $300 fine for not managing wildlife attractants. Now a look at the local forecast. Sunny skies today, highs of 22, except 25 if you're inland, and some clouds tonight with a low of 14. Now back to BC Today with Michelle Eliot.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Speaking of cats.
Yes.
How are Henry and Waffles?
They are doing well. Thank you for asking. They're trying to stay cool in the heat. I have the AC on for them, lots of water, but they do like getting near the window to just soak up the
that
sun
breeze.
and the heat. They do love it.
You're a good cat parent.
Thanks.
And I know you're very excited because we are heading into our cat segment now.
I am very excited.
You will listen, I'm sure, and jot down any notes that that are useful for you.
Yes, any sneak preview?
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about behavior. So I don't know if,
Okay.
if you're trying to get them to not go to the window so much that you're going to have to stand by.
Well, it's so funny to listen to them chat when the seagulls or pigeons come by. You know, they do the little sounds.
What does that tell you? Do you get worried?
This is what I want to hear. I don't know. I don't know. I want
ready to do.
I don't know. I don't
They are plotting.
Those
plotting.
predators.
Your cats are plotting. Oh, Henry and Waffles, they're trouble.
Oh, but they're so cute. They get away with it all, I tell ya.
I know, exactly. That's a thing. They have you wrapped around their thumb, don't they?
They really do,
Their
though.
paws.
Oh, they're totally wrapped around their little paws, their little pads.
Oh my gosh. Michelle, thank you very much. This is all for you. This is why we're doing this today.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Michelle.
Michelle Morton in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. Welcome back here with BC Today here on CBC Radio 1, live streaming on CBC Gem, cbc.ca/BC, and on the CBC Vancouver YouTube page. Nice to have you with us this Friday afternoon. And yes, every 2 weeks, we take your questions on pets. And today you can quiz a cat behavior specialist on your feline's feelings. You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733 on your cell phone star or pound 690. And you can send us your photos of your cats too. They can have their 15 minutes of fame. We did this for dogs. We would love for you to show off your beautiful cats. Send them to bctoday@cbc.ca. That's bctoday@cbc.ca. We can showcase them on our live stream. And Julie Poslins is an applied animal behaviorist and founder of Cat School, which provides cat training education. And Julie is with me here in our studio. Hello.
Hello.
Very good to have you with us. People have been waiting for the cat segment. So I feel
yay.
like there's this burst of questions for you. It may come as a surprise, though, for people that you can actually train cats.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cats are highly trainable, just like dogs are.
Okay. And what is it that you focus on when you do train cats?
Well, you can focus on problem behaviors, or you can focus on behaviors to improve their health and their welfare.
Okay.
So like carrier training, nail trims, teeth brushing, those are just a few of the health and welfare type of behaviors. And then if you have problem behaviors, then that's a whole other, part of the story.
What are some of the biggest problem behaviors that cat parents see?
Well, I think probably the biggest one is cats not getting along. So that's a big one.
Oh, and so what happens then? What do you do in that case?
Well, there's the two parts to it. So I think the first part is like introducing a new cat, and then I think a lot of people follow protocols, and they doesn't end up working sometimes. And then they're like, is this going to be our reality forever? Or our cat's going to have to be separated? And then there's the other part, which is where cats might be getting in. Maybe they're playing, and then that turns into a fight, that sort of thing. So that kind of aggression, or maybe they're seeing something happens, like one cat goes to the vet and then they come back and the other cat sees them as unfamiliar. So they can, that can spark some aggression.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what would you do to try and reduce that aggression?
Well, so building familiarity is a big part of it, and how to do that safely. So when, two cats meet, there's obviously a lot of fear. Are they going to be chased? Is the other cat going to be aggressive towards them? So you want to make sure you're building that positive association between them and showing them that the other cat is safe and good things happen when they're around, and nothing is going to happen that they need to be concerned about. But, and developing that relationship slowly and safely, versus I think what, people might just say, well, let's put them together and see what happens.
Right. Yeah. Right.
We don't want to do that.
How would you do that? Would it be in increments and then give a treat or something like that to associate?
Yeah. So, separating them is always the first step, because you don't want any negative interactions to happen.
Yeah.
So most people follow a protocol where they have them in a separate room, and the one cat gets used to the other cat's smell, and, sees that nothing's happening. There's this, a stranger in the other room, and they're safe, and you can start feeding them on either side of the door near each other. So that's kind of like the first thing, and you build the familiarity from there. But I think where people can get stuck is once, the door is open and they see each other and then they think, okay, nothing's happening, let's let them interact. But then the cats don't actually know how to interact together. So even if you take them, you remove the gate, they're kind of like, okay, what now? How do we, what's the icebreaker we need to help them interact better? And that's the second part to the training, which is, what sort of interactions do you want? And one of my favorite things to use is a classroom analogy where we want the cats to be like students in a classroom, just being able to be beside each other at their own places.
Looking at you.
They can look at me, but I like when they look at each other because they need to look at each other and see that nothing's going to happen.
Right.
That student's sitting over there and they can't approach me. They're not going to do anything to me. So just like there could be a bully in your classroom, in your student classroom in school, when you're in when you're sitting at your chair in your classroom, you're safe. No one's approaching you. No one's bothering you.
That's a safe space.
It's a safe space.
Okay, I know it's funny. Now I have this image of cats sitting in a classroom.
It's a great image. It's a great analogy.
It's like dogs playing poker. Let's take some calls now, and we are taking your questions to Julie Poslan's cat behavior and animal behavior specialist, and taking your questions about cats and cat behavior. Our numbers 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, star or pound 690 as well. And lots of calls are coming in for you. Heather is on the line from Okanagan Falls. Hello there, Heather. Okay, I think we've lost our connection with Heather. Carrie is up next. Heather, I do hope you call us back at 1-800-825-5950. Carrie is on the line in Victoria. Hi, Carrie. Hi, Carrie, are you there? It sounds like we're having some technical difficulties with our callers. Just some patience. I apologize for that. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733 on your cell phone, star or pound 690 as well. Perhaps what I'll do is I'll just put the questions to you. Heather wanted to know about two brother cats, 1 year in April, always being sweet to each other. This falls into the category that you were talking about. And one escaped from the catio, which is a patio for cats, but when it returned, since then they fight, and the one that escaped beats the other one up. So it sounds like it's acquired some kind of new behavior.
Yeah. So that does definitely sound like the same family of behaviors that we've been talking about. With like one cat comes back, they're not familiar anymore. Wow. And how do you build that familiarity and safely? Yeah. So setting up the house to manage their interactions, I think, because they've had a history of being together, we might think the best thing is, they'll figure it out. They'll see each other's familiar
eventually.
Soon. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I would not do that. I would not try to do that because I think that would be setting them up for failure. But I would see if there's a way to set up the house again, like I was saying, with them separated and allow them to get familiar with scent first. That's a nice way to kind of introduce that. But then start doing the visual familiarity, and then they can look at each other on either sides of the gate and get treats and build some familiarity from there. And then, see if you can do like what I was describing with two students in the classroom, like just getting them to be in the same room together, sitting at their spots. Now, one of the things that people don't do, which I highly, highly encourage them to do, is to get harnesses for your cats. Okay. Because if you have a harness on, especially the one that's targeting the other cat, you're going to be able to prevent any bullying. So if there's one cat that's going after the other cat, have them on a harness. Obviously, we don't want any of that sort of aggression, so keep them at a distance. Distance is such an important variable when introducing cats because
sounds like it.
Cats can be fine at a distance as long as they know that the other cat isn't approaching them.
Right.
So we want them, the one that, is being problematic, to be wearing a harness at a distance. And if you have a small space, consider using a vertical distance, because vertical distance is a great way to, if you have, don't have enough room in your place, to one cat up high, one cat down low. And then again, they're going to be less likely to have those interactions that you don't want.
You're not going to pounce on the other one?
Well, you're going to have a combination of distance between them where one is up high, one is down low, but they're also far apart on the other sides of the room and wearing a harness.
They are reassured. Okay, I know you're getting distracted by these adorable pictures of cats behind us. We would love to get your emails as well, your pictures of your own cats in your life. BC Today at cbc.ca. We'll showcase them on our live stream for you. So do share them with us. This is your chance to show off your cats and as proud parents. Carrie is there now from Victoria. Hi, Carrie.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks so much for calling. What's your question for Julie?
So I have a almost 2-year-old half ragdoll, and she's lovely and super smart. But unfortunately, one of her super smart ideas is that because I go to the bathroom on a appliance in the bathroom, that she should also go to the bathroom on an appliance in the bathroom. So she does all her business in the bathtub, which, God help us, there are worse things in the world. Like, at least it's easy to clean up. But I would like to help her transition to litter.
All right. Well, first of all, you were asking about the most common issues, and litter box issues is right at the top.
Right at the top. Okay. Yeah.
And
getting it to go into the litter box, apparently.
And whenever we're problem solving, we want to say, like, what is the simplest reason? And I know it's nice to think that our cats are really thinking, well, you know, you go to the bathroom here, so I'm going to go to the bathroom here. But chances are what's happening here is much simpler than that, which is a preference for, there's either some sort of, well, the first thing is whenever we troubleshoot litter boxes, we will look at, is this medical or is this behavior? And behaviors can't really advise a lot on stuff without saying, okay, you need the vet visit first, because there can be health issues when a cat doesn't use the litter box. And then the second part to the story is, what are the preferences? So, you know, is the cat preferring, like, maybe the litter box is dirty, maybe it's not in a spot that's, so if there is a relationship between you using the bathroom, I would certainly say that putting the litter box in the bathroom would be absolutely a first step, because that would, you know, and sometimes that's annoying to have litter boxes in places we don't want, but it really is the best way to start. And you can move it gradually out of the zone that you don't want. But that's the starting point. I would try to understand if you do believe it's because, you know, your cat wants to go near you, I would start with putting the litter box in there. But it could be other reasons. Like I was saying, medical has to be ruled out too before we start looking at behavior.
Okay. Carrie, does that help you?
Litter box is clean. It's exactly right beside where she uses the bathtub, and she used to use the litter box when she was a little kitten and doesn't. She stopped.
So there's been a change.
Sometimes like that aversion can happen if there's a situation where the cat uses the litter box and doesn't feel well. So that's something
that could be something.
So there could be a number of reasons when a cat stops using a litter box. But one thing I will say is, like, this is a very common thing that people will reach out to an animal behaviors for, and they will kind of do that flow chart of, like, did we rule out medical? Is it behavior? And, like, get a real history. It's not something that you can troubleshoot, you know, in just a few quick things, unfortunately, because there's, like, that flow chart of, you know, 8 things we got. It's a checklist.
Right, what to check for first, and there may be underlying issues there. Yeah, Carrie, thank you so much. So that'll be the first step for you then. Thank you very much for the call. I'm glad we were able to connect. Jane is up next in Slocan. Hi, Jane. Go ahead with your question.
Hi. Thanks for having me on. I have a dear, adorable girl. She's coming up to 2 years old. I have a brother as well. And she likes to chew holes in fabric. And I happen to be a weaver, and she's destroyed several of my hand-woven blankets.
Oh, she's hit gold with you.
Yeah, I know. She just loves them. So I'm just wondering what I can do. I understand it's called picaism, and from what I read was you put your things away. But she seems to be able to get into cupboards and drawers and bags.
Right.
Yeah, that is definitely an interesting behavior, and it's not well understood. Like, I think sometimes people say there's a relationship with certain breeds that do that more often than others. I think what you want to look at it is it related to anxiety? That would be my first thing, and just to see, is this a fun thing, or is there some sort of relationship to anxiety? Because that does sound like it's in the family of behaviors of this might be more of an anxious behavior, a calming, like a self-soothing behavior. And so I would definitely try to see if there's some sort of relationship with that. Like, when is she doing it? What is the pattern? If it seems like play, then you're going to be wanting to offer alternative behaviors, like, playing with toys and stuff like that. But if you believe that it's more of an anxious behavior, then you're going to want to look and try to understand, is this related? Like, a lot of times cats have anxious behaviors because they're bored. So this could be, oh, I'm just looking for something to do. My environment isn't very enriched. If it was that, the route I would go is to start with food puzzles, because food puzzles, looking for treats and snacks in puzzles, is a great way to get your cat foraging and to offer an alternative activity that your cat can do.
Is it stimulating?
Yeah. And a great website is called foodpuzzlesforcats.com. And it talks all about all the different food puzzles, and they've done a study on the benefits of food puzzles, and it's just such a great website. There's like level 1, level 2, level 3. So I would definitely start with food puzzles just to keep her busy doing an activity that's healthy for her, see if that reduces her stress, and kind of go from there.
That sounds like a really good plan. I'm going to go on that website now. There are pictures of cats doing food puzzles, everybody, and just for the sake of seeing that, this is really cool. So that may be an option for you, Jane. Thank you so much for the call, and thanks for all of your emails as well and sending us photos of your cats. Nina wrote us, and Nina sent us a photo as well of her rescue kittens, Lily and Harry. We're going to try and put them up for you right now, and they are a mother and son having a cuddle. Oh my goodness. One is just snuggled up under the other. They are so cute. They are having a cuddle so sweet until one whacks the other one randomly. Okay, so maybe some of those the behaviors or the training that you've mentioned might come in handy there. But at least the photo that you sent us, they are being very, very sweet to each other. Thank you very much for that, Nina. Gorgeous photo. And Gail writes us as well. Thank you, Gail, for emailing us, and a photo as well of your adopted cat who needs a buddy, but I'm not sure I can manage two. Yeah. Any advice for that? That's a really good question.
I love the idea of fostering a cat to test this out. So I think getting a foster is such a great way to see if it's the right match and to get some experience with having two cats and see how you can manage it. See if your space is set up for the proper introductions. And also have, like, if you're fostering with a rescue, you can establish a relationship so that you can find the right match if the first cat you foster isn't.
Right.
So I always recommend people do fostering because obviously they're providing a fantastic service for cats. Getting a cat out of a shelter and into a foster home is always the goal. And it's going to give you a chance to see, what it is about your cat in terms of finding the right match. And like I said, is your house set up to support having a second cat? And doing the introductions, like if you need to do slower ones, are you going to have a second cat in the bathroom or do you have a second bedroom for it? Like, there's a big difference for being for the long term in terms of, having a slow introduction process.
Okay. And speaking of rescue cats, Arizona wrote us as well. I've been given a rescue cat around 6 years old. She loves being brushed, but she is a hissy cat that will turn around when you're touching her and hisses and tries to bite. She will not be held. She growls, and so sounds trigger her and distract her from a calm place. She had licked her tummy furless. Oh, dear. Oh. She has been placed on gabapentin and prednisone for her skin. And Arizona's wondering, is she redeemable? I'm older and get distressed when she's upset. Oh, yeah. That is distressing.
Yeah, that's hard. That's tough. The good news is there are so many things you can do to improve her welfare, and starting with teaching her that being handled is a positive experience, and that means, touching her really gently and then presenting something that she really loves. So if you have a favorite treat for her, like a lickable treat, the churu treats are great. Almost every cat loves churu, and they're these lickable treats that you can touch your cat and then give them the opportunity to lick the treat, and then practice again, making it a little bit harder. So longer touches. Try to find the zones where your cat will be okay with touch. So like a lot of cats will be okay with touch on their back, but then, you try to touch their paws and that's a no-go. Their belly, same thing, right?
yeah.
So you want to understand. And then what we do is we pair the places that they're good at being touched with the places that are a bit more problematic. So you would start with touching on their back and then glide your hand gradually to their shoulder and then present the food. So you're kind of introducing them to like harder handling gradually, that kind of thing.
I find from what I'm hearing from you, a lot of it is about that gradual,
Yes,
really
yes,
taking incremental
yes.
steps. I'm going to squeeze in. Thanks, by the way, to Tyler, who called from Abbotsford saying he loves these segments. He's stuck in traffic right now. I hope we're giving you some company, Tyler. Thanks so much for calling in. Dina in Maple Ridge, I'm squeezing you in. If you could please just quickly ask your question. I'd love to get it in. Hi, Dina.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi.
I'm sorry.
Awesome.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, thanks. So my question is, are we doing everything possible? Is there anything you would add? We have 3 brother cats, and one of them is a sprayer, and he tends to spray at the kitchen sink window, sometimes the bathroom. Once in the middle of the night, I actually caught him peeing in the toilet, which I know people try years to train them. But anyway, only happened once. Anyway, sprays at the kitchen sink window. We think maybe he's seeing things outside and getting anxious about it. So we've done the extra kid litter box. We've added one of those. We've got the cat pheromones at work, and we closed the window where he tends to spray. And the best thing that worked was my husband came up with this idea. Let's put a food dish where he normally sprays, because we're pretty certain he won't spray in the place where he eats.
Right.
So are we forgetting anything?
Okay.
Yeah.
It has reduced. It's definitely reduced his spraying.
But it's still happening. Okay.
But
Anything they're missing?
Unfortunately, we haven't really gotten to the root of the cause of why he's spraying. So like all those things might be helping, but if he is seeing a cat outside and he is feeling stressed about it, then obviously getting kind of rid of that trigger needs to happen. So whether that be, you can shut the blinds, but that doesn't mean that he's not aware of the cat outside. So, what I would do personally is set up a camera and see if you can see, if there's visitors coming that are causing this, and then kind of deal with, how do we prevent them from getting so close to our house and that sort of thing. Usually when there's a cat visitor, we're talking about stray cats, and then you do want to get more involved with making sure that cats in your neighborhood are neutered and that sort of thing. So there is like a bigger part of the picture.
You have to look at once again, that root cause. Dina, thank you so much for that story as well. Julie, great to have you. Thanks for answering these questions.
Me.
It was really fun. Julie Poslins, an applied animal behaviorist, founder of Cat School. Thanks very much to our team here on the show. And we are always online as well, cbc.ca/BC. Melody Jacobson, Mariam Gamar, Rachel Adams, Mel Carter, Mike Hillman, George Baker, Mashid Hadi, and Mark Fairfield. I'm Michelle Eliot. That's our team. Have a great weekend.